I used to write like my goals, like by the end of next year, I want to be making whatever. And I remember one time like 70K a month was like unattainable as a goal. Like it was like such a big deal. For context now, if we do that a day, it's like, that was like a normal day or like a slow day. Is everything. Even when I first started, was everything. Dude, I had no money. I was barely able to pay for gas. I literally was broke. If I walked into there like I was broke, they would not buy from me. But because I walked in there like I knew their business inside out, they bought from me. When you're small and it's you, is everything, because you have a disadvantage to the big guys. You need to be a little bit more confident to be able to play against those big guys, because their confidence comes from like size.
Right.
Your confidence needs to come from somewhere else. If you do not think you can, then you will definitely not. You know what they say? Like if someone thinks they're going to lose, they've already lost.
Yeah.
And that's how most people are playing.
Whether you think you can or you think you can't.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah. I'm Eddie Malouf, and you're watching Entrepreneur Unleashed.
Welcome back to another episode of Entrepreneur Unleashed. And in the studio today is my friend, Eddie Malouf. He's going to be sharing some insights that I know are going to rock your world. If this is the first time joining, my name is Edward Collins. I'm your host. I am a serial entrepreneur, and I have this fundamental foundational belief that the best way to shortcut your journey is by learning vicariously from others who have been through the journey themselves. So without further ado, I don't want to waste any more time. I just want to jump into an awesome conversation. Eddie, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me, man. Really appreciate it.
No, it's definitely my pleasure. I know that you and I have known each other now for a little bit, but the audience may not. So tell us a little bit about who you are in this moment, like what you're doing now, and then we'll get a little bit of the backstory.
Cool. So I own, I'm the CEO and co-founder of Bad Marketing. We're a marketing agency, works with two kinds of businesses, people that sell products online, like from Amazon, things like that are delivered. And then people who sell like online education products. So we have about 200 employees, half between each. And now actually what we do is we go and buy into other companies, whether it's softwares and things like that. And we scale them with our marketing agency to then flip them for, 10, 20X of what we purchased them for.
That's definitely been a larger trend than I'm seeing in the industry, where individuals who have created something of substance, right? Then going in and taking what they've learned and applying it to acquisition targets, if you will. I'm definitely going to dive into that in a bit, but I'm kind of curious, like how, again, I know a little bit of your backstory, and there's always more to learn, but a lot of people may not. So how did you even get into the industry as a whole, like into marketing in general?
Yeah. So I was actually, originally, I wanted to start a supplement company.
Okay.
And in order to do so, I had to go with the marketing plan to the manufacturers.
Okay.
To be able to actually get their business, right? I had to go present like, hey, here's my business plan. Here's my marketing plan. Here's why you should let me sell your products. Here's how I'm going to do it with influencers, whatever it was. And that's what got me into it. So I started learning ads, doing all this stuff. And we had family businesses. And so I started running the ads for the family businesses. Okay. Long story short, I was really good at sales, but I was doing one-on-one sales. And I was like, there has to be a way for me. And there's no courses and like things like that back then. Like it wasn't like you were just getting ads for people selling courses on ads. Like it just didn't exist. Like no one had a YouTube video on ads. So it was kind of pre-technology of like content days. And I was like, there's got to be a way for me to sell more than one person at a time. Like I'm spending an hour to get a sale every time, and I can only cut it down to 45 minutes. Like just can't do more. I got to go to the masses. So then I really started digging into advertising, and I was like, okay, I can make an ad one time, use my sales skills to persuade people through the ad. And through the ad, I can sell to hundreds of people in a day as opposed to like 5 people because of my time.
Yeah. Now, I know that you're doing a bit of both. You're doing both the marketing and the advertising component of what, and plus obviously fulfillment too. Like you have done for you services and things of that nature. But when you were first exploring the whole ad environment for your family businesses, did you go out to other professionals and get them to guide you, or was it just truly all self-taught?
No, truly all self-taught when I first started. So for the first couple of years, I was purely self-taught. I didn't even get and just so you know how I think, like I love investing money into courses and programs. Like it's like an addiction almost. Now I don't have the time anymore. Back then, like when I first started, I was like, I'm going to go overtime to make sure I listen to this course as quickly as possible. To the point that I was flying to vacation in Thailand, and on the airplane, I was like scrolling through social media on the Wi-Fi, and I got an ad for like a webinar for ads, and I watched the entire thing, and I just bought it and watched it while I was in Thailand. Like I was just like, whatever I could do to do it, but that was already 2 years into it. So like I learned and I got scrappy, and once you figure out the tech side, the rest of it's like logic. It's like, what do I want my headline? How am I going to sell these people? Because I have a sales background, so I didn't have to learn like how to speak. You know what I mean? I already knew how to do that. I knew like what my customers' pain points were. I knew exactly what their objections are going to be. I already knew all these things. So I just needed a way to distribute that information. And while it sounds so simple to everyone now, like, oh, they're all on social media all day. Back then, like, you didn't even have a single sponsored ad in your entire feed. It didn't exist. And so learning it was so difficult because like Facebook didn't even have like resources to learn it. You just had to like click around enough to figure it out.
Yeah. When you looked at that journey, obviously you're doing it for the family business. What was the family business at the time?
We have like indoor amusement parks. So like, yeah, let's call it like Dave and Buster's, Chuck E. Cheese, like that kind of stuff. Go-karting tracks.
So was your marketing effort more on the visual side of the spectrum, or was it more on the copy side of the spectrum? Because obviously a lot of people look at these things differently.
Yeah, both. I actually picked up a camera and forced myself to learn.
Okay.
Just because I knew back then, like in 2000, we're talking 2016, 17, 15 even, like phone cameras were not that good. Right. So like I had to go, I bought a Sony. I started learning how to use it on YouTube tutorials. Wasn't that hard. They have like autofocus features and stuff. Yeah. So I was more on that side, but I knew from early on, like if I wanted to track my marketing, I needed to sell like high ticket things to track. So I focused only on birthday parties. So all my marketing was birthday parties. And I was like, you know, it's $500 a pop on average. So like if I can bring 50 more a month, I'm bringing 25 grand or more, 25 grand plus a month extra to the business that wasn't there. And the halo effect of like 5 million impressions that month on ads will bring in a ton of other customers. And so that's exactly what happened. Our business went up by like 100% as a business. And then the party business went up by 100%.
Now, here's the thing that I also recognize about individuals who have achieved levels of success. Sometimes it's hard for you to remember when you didn't know anything.
Yeah.
So I'm kind of curious, like, how did you come up with the thought process of compounding the value proposition on a monthly basis by just adding that high ticket? Like, what actually motivated you to move in that direction? Like, did you read a book about it? Did you watch a presentation about it? Like, what was it? Do you remember?
Honestly, it was just intuition.
Okay.
I've been involved in my family's businesses since I was like a child.
Okay.
Like at like 8, 9, I was like working a sales floor with my family trying to sell flooring. Like I've been in like kind of the sales side of things. And so like I understood like average ticket value and how important it was. And when you're taking a risk as a business owner into advertising that you haven't done before, you need to be able to recoup a quick ROI.
Oh yeah.
If my customer's worth like $10, if they walk in the door, it's going to take, 25 of them to get to $250. Right. Whereas one birthday is $500. It's going to take me 50 customers to get the same thing.
Yeah.
And so I'm like, okay, my mass way to reach more people is birthdays, because then these people invite 15 kids, and then 15 more kids just walked into my place, and now they're like, oh, we should come here. We should do a birthday here. And it just kind of like snowballs. So I just recognized that early. I'm like, if I could just do it in bulk, which was the whole point I got into marketing in the first place, right? Then we could at least like be profitable for sure. And all the other stuff is extra. We get a ton more walk-ins, everything like that. It's all just bonus for us.
So when you made the switch then from focusing mostly on your family's business to other people's businesses, like what motivated you to do that?
I just recognized the opportunity because my father had business partners in that business.
Okay.
At first, they didn't want me involved because they're like, oh, owner's son, this is going to be a disaster.
Right.
Then I made them a lot of money. And then they're all like, hey.
That usually changes people's minds, right?
Like, oh, wait, I like him. So they're like, oh, I have this other company, I have this company. And then I'm like, wait, like, what am I doing? Like, I got into this originally to like learn marketing and work on my father's businesses to do so. But now I have a skill set that's good enough where I can actually go bring value to other businesses and get compensated. So then I started like going and reaching out to other companies that I like locally and started like convincing them to let me do their marketing. So.
And from the convincing standpoint, what was that like? Like, was it you just making cold calls? What was the process like?
Phases. So like one was like cold calls. And then I realized I'm competing with every other cold caller. Yeah. I'm one person. I'm competing with every other cold caller, and these guys have companies that just like dial all day long. Like, I'm going to lose. So I was like, what's the best way that I can win? Again, I don't have money at this point. So I'm like, I need to like really be efficient here. So I actually drove to the places and walked in. So I would like map out the day before, like what businesses am I going to drive to in what order. So like, for example, I'll batch them. So this week I'm only going to talk to dentists. So I'll learn everything about dental on the weekend, all their terminology, molars and, fillers and cavities and like everything that root canals. And like, I learned everything about them that I could.
Yeah.
And then all week I would have it mapped every day. So every day I'd hit like 25 locations, like in order. I'd be like this one, then this one. And I would just like put them on Google Maps and save them as like next location, whatever. And on a notebook, I just start scratching them out and go. And honestly, half the time, like, you start learning things. You're like, fuck, lunch break. No one's here on lunch. I'm wasting my time. I just drove 45 minutes to this guy. So that's how I started getting clients, was like, I would learn everything about them on the weekend. I'd spend the whole week driving and I get a handful of people from it. And then eventually it didn't make sense for my time. So then we started doing like cold email strategies and things like that could like be more scalable. But when you first start, man, I talk to these people and they're like, they're not making any money, but they're also like, they think they're too good to do certain activities. And like, people look at me now, especially like in the marketing agency space, they're like, oh my gosh, Eddie, like, how'd you do this? Blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, guys, like I used to like drive. I used to like beg people to work with me. Like it's like,
you put in the reps.
You put in the reps. Yeah.
It was interesting because I literally was with a bunch of business owners last night. We were out at dinner and we were talking about the concept of being an amateur versus being a pro. And most business owners are amateurs, right?
Yeah.
They don't put in the effort. They don't study. They don't try to perfect their skill. They don't hone it. They don't get coaching to see what they're doing right or wrong. Like, what's your perspective on that? Like, what is your opinion regarding the amateur versus pro environment for business owners?
I mean, it's very clear when you talk to someone what category they're in.
Yeah.
And I think a lot of it comes from one, like some business owners I could just tell, like, because of their ego and because of the fact that they don't think they can learn more, or they don't think that, there's better ways to do the things that they're doing. They're just going to stay where they are. Like I have business owners who, I remember when like I used to sell to local businesses, we used to sell a lot to like automotive repair shops and custom shops. Like if you want to get your wheels done and stuff. And they'd be like, I've been in business for 30 years, like proud of it. And they have like one employee, you know what I mean? And they're like, proud that they've been in business for 30 years. And I would like, respectfully be like, hey, isn't that kind of like a problem? Like you've been in business for 30 years and you haven't gotten past this point. Like, doesn't that mean like you need to try something different? Because like what makes you think that for 30 years you're going to do it this way and then next year it's just going to change? And you're going to do it. Sort of
like you walk up on a 20-year-old and they're still crawling on the floor. Like, when are you going to stand up and walk?
Exactly, right? Exactly. And so, and they're proud of it. They're like, oh, I've been in business for 30 years. I'm like, okay. Like that. There's people I know who have been in business for a year who have accomplished more than your 30. And that's because they're willing to learn. And so like, even when I first started, man, like, I mean, I still don't know anything. Like comparatively to people, they're like, oh, Eddie, you're so smart, all these things, whatever. But like, I look up to different people who I don't know anything compared to them. And so that's always been my mentality from the point that I started. I would literally make money and then spend money on learning from someone else. And my dad even was like, good luck getting that $3,000 back you just spent. Like, kind of like, man, that's a lot of money to go see someone for a day, but I always got the value out of it and like pushed myself further and got pieces of information from other people that were ahead. And
now we spend $30,000 to $50,000 for a day.
That's what I'm saying. Yeah. Like I've literally paid people $50,000 to like sit with them for 5 hours.
When you look at that, those first few months, if you will, when you transitioned from working solely for your family business to other businesses, like what was like one key takeaway from like, because it's different working with family, right? It's different working with people who to working with strangers. Like what's one key takeaway that you think every business owner needs to absorb?
Positioning is everything.
Okay.
So I really, really believe in positioning. The reason I'm in the position that I'm in is because I've positioned myself as an authority over years with relationships, success, whatever it is. I've been very meticulous about positioning. Even when I first started, positioning was everything. Like I told you, I was spending a weekend learning the kinds of businesses I was going to talk to in the weekdays so that I positioned myself as the expert from day one. I'd walk in and I'd start using terminology that they understood in the dental world that they would immediately be like, oh, this guy definitely knows dental. And so that, to me, positioning wise is way better than someone cold emailing them, cold calling them, like, and be like, hey, we run marketing. We'd love to work with your place. Like, it's not the same. If I come in and I'm like, hey guys, are you interested? Like, I focus specifically on marketing for root canals and Invisalign procedures. Like, And, you know, do you guys have a back office? Like, how's the management here? And I'm kind of questioning their business. That puts me in a position of authority.
Right.
And that is the only reason I close these guys, is because I went in, I knew everything about their business like it was mine. They're all the same, you know what I mean? And I came in from a position of authority, and dude, I had no money. I was barely able to pay for gas. Like, I literally was broke. And if I walked into there like I was broke, they would not buy from me. But because I walked in there like I knew their business inside out, they bought from me. And so it was all the positioning. And when you're small and it's you, positioning is everything, because you have a disadvantage to the big guys.
Yes.
And so you need to, I guess, like, be a little bit more confident to be able to play against those big guys, because their confidence comes from like size.
Right.
Your confidence needs to come from somewhere else. And so you need to establish that positioning with these people. And I think really that was it for me, dude. I was taking calls and I'd be like, yeah, let me have the team send that over. And it'd be like, I'm like, I'll have them send it over in an hour, because I'm looking at my GPS. I'm like, that's when I get home. You know, it's like 30 minutes. So I'll type this up and send it over. But I'm like, yeah, I'll have the team send it. Oh, thanks so much, Eddie. Thanks so much. You know what I mean? And so some people might look at that as like, oh, you're being ingenuine or you're lying or whatever. I mean, I did great work for all these clients. So I don't look at it like that. I look at it as like, I put myself in a position of authority where they were able to at least be open to trusting me more, as opposed to just being like the guy who just walked in and tried to sell them, and that's how they think of me.
There are likely going to be a lot of business owners who are experiencing this interaction between the two of us, who are maybe right on the cusp of transitioning into something significant.
Yeah.
From a business owner perspective, what would you say was the thing that helped you move from being a novice in the industry to becoming an expert in the industry?
In marketing specifically, or just in
for
industry?
your business, right? So whether it's applying it to marketing or any other bit, like, because you've seen tons of businesses now just because of the individuals that you work with.
Yeah.
I'm just curious from your perspective, like what one or two things needed to happen for you to be able to move from that novice or that amateur environment to becoming a pro?
Yeah, I think two things. One is coaching and mentorship.
Okay.
I know it just sounds so like boring and dry, but like it's true. Like even at this level, you know, we do millions a month. Like I'm paying people who do 10 million a month to teach me how to get to that level. What am I missing and things like that. So coaching, and I always try to find someone who's like one or two steps ahead, not like way too far.
Right.
Like if I went and paid someone right now that's running a $10 billion a year company, like he wouldn't be able to help
to
me.
relate.
Yeah, exactly. Be like, what are those problems? I've never had them. So just like meticulous coaching and picking like someone a few steps ahead to be able to kind of pull you up is one. And I think two, like managing finances was probably one of the biggest things. Okay. When I first started in business, I'm just like, okay, I know, because my expenses are low and everything, I know I'm making more money than I'm spending. It's like guaranteed. Do I know the exact dollar amount every month? I don't. Once we started making like maybe 50 to 70K a month, I started being like, okay, we really need to like not just look at Stripe and be like, we're fine. You know what I mean? Like, let's actually run these numbers. So now, I mean, I could tell you how much, like, I'll distribute the costs of a pencil purchased in a department to that department as a cost. It cost me 30 cents per person on average in that department, whatever it is, to buy a pencil, like all the way down the list. Obviously that's over meticulous, but just for example's sake, like we know our numbers now. So I can make different decisions. I can be more aggressive, or I know when to be defensive based on what the numbers look like. Whereas like when I first started, it wasn't the case. And I'll add a third one. I think sales is the most important thing, because like you're going to become world-class through experience. Like you can only become world-class, like looking at other businesses and helping them restructure. And then there's a positive outcome. You're like, great, that worked. We can use this again on these kind of companies or whatever it is.
Exactly.
So it comes with experience. You can't get that without sales. You can't do it unless you go and sell. And people always say like revenue solves all problems and stuff like that. I mean, to an extent, you know what I mean? But like without sales, you have no business. Like you could have the sickest product, sickest operation. You could have the best in the world of everything. If you can't sell it, it doesn't matter.
Yeah. Fulfillment's great, but you need a pipeline.
Exactly. Right? Or they're just sitting there with their hands empty.
And unfortunately, that's a lot of businesses.
A lot,
because you and I get to experience a lot of business owners in all different walks of life, all different industries.
Yeah.
And there's tons of businesses out there that, quite frankly, you're being very kind to call them a business.
Yeah.
When you look at the transition, then once you got into like the sweet spot of having relatively predictable revenues that you could then learn to how to scale them, Like what were the transition points for you to scaling to different levels?
One was mentality.
Okay.
I just like, so I have my notebook of like, I used to write like my goals, like by the end of next year, I want to be making whatever. And I remember one time like 70K a month was like unattainable as a goal. Like me and my wife, I remember we're walking, this is just a few years ago, like we were walking our apartment complex and I'm like, man, like one day we'll hit 70. Like I'm hoping we can do it by August. And like I had it in my notebook. It was like such a big deal. And like for context now, if we do that a day, it's like, that was like a normal day or like a slow day. And so one is mindset. I had to like really understand that 70K a month is nothing for a business. Like for someone personally, it's a lot, but for a business, it's not.
Exactly.
You have to like pay bills, you have offices, you have all this equipment around, you have all these people, like marketing costs, sales costs. And so, I had to like shift my mindset to be like, oh, like if these companies can make hundreds of millions a year, like I can definitely make tens of millions a year.
Right.
As opposed to like, oh my gosh, 70K a month is such a strong goal. I don't know if we'll be able to get there ever. That mindset shift is, I think, one of the most important things because you kind of shift your identity to thinking this is a lot or this is a little. If I still thought, you know, a 50K watch was a lot of money, I would probably be a lot less wealthy than I am now, right? But if I'm like, oh, 50K is not a lot of money, and that's how I need to operate, that means I need to make way more than that so that it is kind of insignificant.
I was having a discussion with a business owner, and we were talking about the concepts of money.
Yeah.
And how when you know how to make it, it's pretty much like Monopoly, right?
Yeah.
So like the whether it's a 50K watch, a $250,000 car, doesn't like when you know how to make it, it sort of like becomes a little bit superfluous, right? I'm curious, like what are the things, since you have achieved certain milestones of success, I'm not saying you're finished yet, but you've hit some milestones of success. Like how is your life different now than it used to be? And I'm not talking about the surface level stuff, right? Like, I'm just curious, like from a sense of security, sense of thought process. Like,
I have no sense of security still.
None. Okay.
And I do that to myself.
Okay.
I don't hold much cash. I mean, it's perspective, right? To a normal person, be like, holy fuck, that's so much cash.
Right.
But like to like me and what I'm trying to do, like I don't hold a lot of cash. So I always send my cash out. So I'll put it into different companies that I believe in will grow and like we'll buy other companies, and I'm always like money out. So like scarcity, and not scarcity, but like security is enough, but it's not like where I'm like, oh, I'm going to kick back and relax. Right. I always like to kind of have that like need to grow.
Okay.
So that's one. But two, I mean, I definitely like never, I know people are like, oh, I check my bank account every day. I never check my bank account, like maybe once a month. Like my CFO gives me a report every day of our business bank accounts.
Right.
But like my
totally
personal,
different spread.
Yeah. My
totally
business bank
different.
accounts, like I'm not going to deplete it. It's not like I'm going and just like buying Lamborghinis every week or new houses and stuff like that. So like once a month I meet with financial managers and, you know, we go through everything. Here's all your accounts. Here's what you have, etc. But all that being said, lifestyle wise, like I never have to check for money for things that I want to spend, which is great. But I also don't allow myself to be like over secure to the point where like I'm letting off the gas because I'm trying to do way bigger things. And I know if like I'm financially secure, we're going to have a problem.
Okay. When you look at the stage you're in now, right? Because you've gone through a variety of different stages. How would you classify the stage you're in now with regard to the business as different from the last stage? Like what is the biggest difference for you?
Yeah, so the stage that I'm at now with 200 employees is like very managerial and very CEO and very like I'm on meetings most of the day. Like even driving here, I had like 3 or 4 meetings just on calls.
Right.
Like I meet more than I do now, which is weird because I really am good at doing. But like the last year, I've had to do less and meet more. And it's kind of weird because some days I still put on all these tasks on my list. And then like I'll get to the end of the day of like 8 hours of calls, 9 hours. And I'm like, do these tasks or like spend 2 hours with my kids before they sleep.
Yeah.
And then like I pick the kids.
Absolutely.
Whereas I used to not, right? Now I'm like, why? These tasks will be here tomorrow, whatever. Like I'll just get to them. So now my whole life is just like calls. It's like making sure this team's good, meeting with finance, meeting with marketing, meeting with sales, and like giving my ideas and polishing and things like that. As opposed to like when I first started, it was like I'm on a computer, like doing actual work, whether it's spreadsheets, running ads, like I'm being as intense as possible from a work standpoint, working like 12-hour days on a laptop. Whereas now I could literally like run my entire business from my phone because that's the role I play.
I'm curious about the meetings concept, because I know a lot of business owners have gone through a similar transition issue. Like you are the doer, you're wearing all the hats, and then all of a sudden you've basically delegated all the hats out.
Yeah.
But you still have to advise and counsel and give direction to. Like, how do you actually run your meetings? Give us some insight. Like, what is your methodology?
Yeah, I mean, every meeting's different.
Okay.
Whether, like, for example, if it's my info product teams every morning, like we have an agenda where we go down every client, like what are things we had to do, what do we do last week or yesterday, what do we have to do this week, where are we at with these projects, and we're kind of just going down like the project list. If it's like our boardroom meeting, which is like higher level management, we're going through like company finances, like main like roadblocks or problems that people are having, and we've usually kind of like pre-listed them going into the meeting. Like we'll have a thread and we'll be like, okay, here's the things that I need to talk about. I need to talk about whatever.
Okay.
And then
how do you manage the thread? Like through like
just like Slack? Yeah, just Slack. So we'll have like a channel for that and be like, okay, boardroom thread this week. And then like people will be like, need to discuss onboarding changes for e-commerce. Need to do this.
Okay.
And so we'll go through finances, then we'll go through those, and then we'll have kind of an open floor. And if I have an agenda for something like, hey, this month we're going to focus on this, I'll go through it. But yeah, I mean, besides that, like most of the meetings I have are like set to one thing. So like this meeting is just for our marketing and leads. So we'd be going over like, what's the data the last 7 days from our leads? How much is it costing us? How many closes do we have so far? How many are in the pipeline? How many are hot? How many, you know what I mean? So each meeting kind of has its own.
Do you have like a project management system, like an Asana or something?
Yeah, we use ClickUp personally.
ClickUp.
Yeah.
Okay.
But they're all the same.
Yeah, they're all. But you have a system, right? You have a methodology.
For sure. Yeah. The entire company runs through ClickUp.
Okay. When you look at your company now, how many employees in total?
Almost 200.
How many are at the management level? How many direct reports do you have?
Okay. How many direct reports do I have? How many I should have is like 4. Right. How many I actually have is like 9, 10.
Wow.
Yeah.
No wonder you're in meetings all the time.
Yeah, but the 4 of the 10 aren't ones that I am actively managing.
Okay.
But they're ones I'm actively talking to all the time.
Okay.
Like, hey, Eddie, we were launching this webinar for this client next week. Here's what we have. What do you think?
Okay.
You know what I mean? So it's not necessarily like a direct report like, hey, you have to tell me everything you're doing, but more like I'm deeply in contact with those people.
Okay. So I do want to transition a little bit into the day-to-day operations of your business for a second. Because it's called bad marketing, right?
Yeah.
But it's nowhere near bad. It's like awesome. I've seen some of your stuff. It's like off the charts.
It.
I'm a fan. How did you first and foremost come up with the name of bad marketing? Because it wasn't always bad marketing.
No.
I saw the transition. So
yeah. So
tell us the story.
So yeah, we were actually we were For Media originally, and actually what happened was the true story is that there was another company called For Media Group, and we were For Media Marketing, and they also did marketing. And they had signed a contract in the US, and according to common law, whoever came first kind of wins.
Yeah.
Which is so stupid because like they didn't like have like a website, like they didn't have social media.
No actual market. Yeah.
There's nothing, right? So they're like, hey, we want, I forgot what it was. They're like, we want like $500,000 and for you to use the name. And I'm like, no. And they're like, okay, well, we're going to like sue you for trademark infringement and all this stuff. And I was like, you guys don't even have a trademark. Like, no. And I started thinking about it. I was like, you know what? Like, we're not really attached to the name because the name had an original meaning. We had 4 partners, all with the last name M. So it was like 4M. We're like, what can we change it to? For Media. Cool, whatever. You start a business,
right,
like, shoot the shit.
I get there.
Here's the name. So I was like, none of these partners even exist anymore. It's just one M. So I'm like, we just change the name. Like, there's no purpose because like I have to explain it to people every time, and it's kind of weird. So here's the thing. We're like, okay, we need a name that no one's used. The problem is in the marketing space, every name is taken because like everyone starts a marketing company from their bedroom.
Right.
And so we're going through like every name possible. I mean, we've gone through, I'm not kidding, like 10,000 names. Like, We're like, that sounds like a tech company. That's not big enough. I was like, we got one shot to change our name. Like, it needs to be like crazy. And then like our CFO, who's like the worst marketer in the world, was like sarcastically like, well, let's just call it bad marketing then at this point. You know what I mean? And I was like, everyone's like, ha ha ha. I'm like,
that's an idea.
I like that. Yeah. What could we do? And I put like BAD on the board. And I'm like, what could this stand for? And then we went through everything. We got to bold and disruptive eventually. Found another company using the name Bad Marketing, but to what I could tell online, they hadn't been in business since 2020.
Okay.
And there's a 3-year rule.
Yes.
And so I was like, cool, let's cop it. I even filled out forms on their website just to see if they would respond. They didn't. And then surely enough, we filed the trademark, everything. This like literally a month ago. Was the last day for someone to appeal it, and they appealed it on the last day.
Oh goodness!
Because they used it first according to common law, and now he wants to fight me for money and all this stuff. So I'm like in this whole scenario again.
Yeah.
I'm like, how do we get here? And it was because an employee or someone applying, an applicant, applied to their website instead of ours, and that's how he found out. And it was the last day. Like I was like, man, one more day, and I would have been. And now I'm like. Yeah, dealing with this all over again. I'm fighting for the name, and I'm like, I'm not giving up this name. And so I'm like, this name is too good, and he wants $300,000. He's like, $300,000, I'll walk away. I'm like, nah, like I'm not giving you $300K. That's not fair. But that's this is inside knowledge, right? Like I've never even talked about this. So that's how we came up with the name Bad Marketing. We're like, okay, we need to be different, and we're spending so much money in ads that and we get so many referrals that don't know our name for media. They're like, media for 4M. Like they just kind of throw out all these random names that are close. And I was like, no one will forget Bad Marketing.
No.
So like,
that's definitely, I mean, bold and disruptive in and of itself is awesome, but the moniker Bad is.
Dude, I'm telling you, I get, yesterday I was in the airport, just like wearing a shirt like this, ordered a sandwich. And the guy was like, hey man, I'm a videographer. Like what's Bad Marketing? I'm like, it's a marketing. He's like, can I apply? Like, I love the name. And like he just applied to work with us, like a cash register at the airport who like films videos. He's like, look at my portfolio. So the name's really strong, and like people never forget it. So now when I get referrals, no one messes up the name. Bad Marketing, very clear.
What's the next step though for you? Because like you've gotten to some significant success, right? And there's a lot of people who know you especially in the industry, but a lot of people outside the industry as well, like cash register individuals in the airport. Right? Like what's the next step for you?
Yeah, so originally our next step was, hey, let's build this company and sell it, which is still on the radar in the future, but I don't know if it's going to be as soon as we expected.
Okay.
Because we noticed, we're like, you know what, the hardest thing to build in a company is like a very successful marketing and sales engine. And like I could basically plug myself into most companies and like just make them more money and increase valuation, right? So I'm like, instead of selling ourselves, why don't we just like buy other ones, flip them? Like if I just buy a company worth, for example, we bought one worth $8 million in December. We just got an offer for 50. 6 months later, I'm like, why don't we just do that like 5 times a year, and we're better off than selling our own company because we can go do that.
Right.
If we miss 2 out of 4 every time, I mean, I'll take 2 flips like that. That outweighs the 2 losses. So that's kind of the direction that we're going in. And from a marketing standpoint, we're going more broad.
Okay.
So like we used to be like, okay, I only want to talk to e-com owners, whatever. Now I'm going to kind of go broad because the name Bad Marketing is so broad that we're taking advantage of it. So like now, for example, I like, just to tell you how broad I'm going, I hired like a Trump actor from SNL. Like I'm flying him out from Vegas. I rented out like prison cells, courtrooms, like to make like Trump based ads around.
I love it.
Dude, you're going to love the campaign.
I'm looking forward to it.
It's instead of like Make America Great Again, it's Make Marketing Bad Again.
Oh,
and that's like the whole play. It's like we even printed red hats for it and everything. So I got a Trump actor. Like I'm going really broad. I'm okay, Make Marketing Bad Again. Like how can I make this like a really big national campaign where everyone's like,
Bad Marketing.
Like that's sick. You know what I mean? I want to work with these guys. So that's kind of the next steps, is broadening our reach a little bit, since the name is so like easy to remember. Now, if I get 1 or 2 touch points on someone, they'll never forget Bad Marketing.
Yes.
Whereas for media, dude, my best friends would send me a referral and they'd be like, Media 4. I'm like, fuck, dude, like how many times have we done this? You know what I mean? I'm like, so now I'm like, we just get our name out there more. The business will organically grow from being able to do stuff like that. So
when you identify a target from an acquisition standpoint, like what is it that you're looking for?
Lack of marketing
obviously
is number 1,
key,
right? Because that's where I can give the biggest lift, and really good product.
Okay.
Bonuses would be like, this is in my industry where I have clientele and I'm already advertising.
Okay.
So that I could like infuse it. So like, for example, the software company we bought, they target the same customers we do. And so I'm like, okay, great. I can have all my customers use the software, and then I can use the software as an acquisition tool for my agency.
Yes.
Where, hey, customers go to the software. Oh, you need an agency for this, go to there. And it kind of like works into their own ecosystem. So that's like super good bonus. But like for context, I bought a restaurant company, like can't help my agency with anything. Right. Yeah. But from a marketing standpoint, I can come in and like just double the business.
Right.
Because they had really good food, really good product. So as long as the product is good and the marketing is deficient, I can usually turn a business around very quickly because I pump more cash into it from marketing, and the customers will come back because the product is good. If your product is bad, you're literally just burning yourself to the ground by marketing because you're getting more people to dislike the product quickly.
Yeah, when I talk with business owners about acquisition, I'm usually saying focus on something that in and of itself is profitable.
Yeah,
right? It already has existing profits. It just needs something, right? Maybe there's some distress on the seller side of the spectrum, but maybe there's just a deficiency in one particular aspect that doesn't affect the profitability. Right? It just maybe affects scale, and you can just layer in your ability to get scale. When you look at that as your go-to for the next whatever period of time, what do you think the biggest roadblock is going to be for you to continue down that path?
It's always money and talent.
Okay.
I think like you can condense time with more money. And so I don't want to say time. I think it's talent and money. It's like being able to find the right people to sit in those seats, to be able to take us to that next level in those positions. And to just having the money to be able to accelerate that process. Because like I built this company without ever taking a loan, like no money help or anything. We bootstrapped the whole thing, built our own cash reserves and started investing in talent. If I had like a massive influx of cash right now, I would just be able to go hire really talented people aggressively and also spend a ton of money on marketing and just accelerate that time because I'm getting way more customers and way more staff quickly, and then I can get there. But yeah, I think it's just money and talent. And in my industry, you know, talent is super important because like it's my product.
Yes.
You're really paying me to do marketing. Like if you pay bad marketing to do marketing, you're paying the staff of bad marketing to do the marketing. You're not like getting a automated service system or software or anything like that. Right. So we are the product. So I think those are really the two bottlenecks. And I think as business owners who are listening, who are, you know, not at that stage in business yet, I think it's very important to understand like talent is actually the most important piece. It took me too long to figure that out. And I think like a few years in, I remember leaving a conference and I was like, you know what? My goal, instead of like every time I leave, my goal was like, I need to like be able to make more money. My goal, that one was like, I need to be able to like afford to pay better employees so that I can have more people who are like really sick on my team so I can do less and they can help do the things that I'm doing without me having to do them at my level. Because at first when I started, I'd want like $1,000 VAs, $2,000 VAs, and like that quality doesn't help you really grow a business. You still have to manage them. But if you pay someone $10,000, they're a really, really smart person usually. Yeah. And they come in, they can make an actual impact on the business. And so that $10,000 actually isn't an expense. It's an investment into the profit that they can bring in. And so I think when I shifted my mindset early on to think that way and go from like, let's stop playing around with like 4 of us and some VAs, let's like build a company. Yeah. That was the biggest shift.
Often I sit back down when we're analyzing businesses, we're looking at talent from a multiplier effect, right? So if there's a cost to a particular candidate, you'd want to look at that candidate's capability of generating X times the cost of their salary.
Yeah.
Right? So I usually look at a multiple of around 5, right? I want 5 times the revenue production based on whatever it's going to cost.
Yeah.
And to your point, like if you're tackling or trying to tackle business enterprise with $500, $1,000 VAs, you may get some work product out of them, but again, the value proposition is just smaller on scale.
Much smaller.
So the dollar amounts are just not as lucrative. Whereas if you do pay someone with significant capabilities and independence, right, they don't necessarily have to be managed day to day. Not only do you get the value proposition of the end product, but you also bought your own time back.
Exactly.
Right? And buying your time back is an investment that it can work wonders for a business owner.
Yeah, I think it's the hardest thing to do at the same time, especially when you're just starting out in business. It's like totally. To take 50% of the money you're making and go give it to someone else who's never worked a day in your company, you've been doing it for 3 years, is a very hard decision emotionally to make. And so I think that's where a lot of people get stuck. They're like, I don't want to pay money to someone else to bring the right person in at this stage. And so they're just always stuck solopreneur for the rest of their life.
What do you see the evolution of bad marketing and more specifically of Eddie Malouf?
I mean, Eddie Malouf right now, I'm acquiring tons of companies. Just last week we were at my haunted house that we're opening in October. Do you know how much money haunted houses do?
No.
Take a guess, bro. Like they open for 2 months a year. How much net profit you think like a good, I'm not saying the best in the world, but a good one?
I'm gonna go higher than I probably would have if we just talked offline. Maybe like 400,000 or 500,000.
400 or 500. What would you have gone if like we didn't talk?
Maybe two.
Yeah. How about like $2-3 million?
That's crazy.
Crazy, dude.
I love that.
In like a month and a half. Like it's like shit like that. So like I'm involved in like all these projects like that.
I may have to target some new acquisitions.
But it's cool because I'm like, dude, like you set up for like once it's set up once, like you set up for like a month. You run the business for 6 to 8 weeks, and you pull out $3 to $4 million net.
Are you acquiring the property or are you renting the property?
In this case, I bought this property.
Okay.
So I just bought the property and we worked it. I have like chicken franchises. I have software companies. Every quarter, I invest into like 2 new companies.
Okay.
So, and that's why I say like I don't have cash. I'll literally just take like $500K to $1 million and just like buy like 5%, 10%, 20%, depending on the companies.
What are you going to do in the off season with the property?
The property. So the property is 150,000 square feet. The haunted house is only 20 of it. The other 130 is an indoor park. So it's like go-karts, arcades, skating rinks, laser tag.
Okay.
So it's
it'll be
operating.
Productive.
It's already productive. Yeah. It's already profitable. I mean, I pay my mortgage off parking.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So like not even the inside.
Okay. So yeah, you'll do. I like that. Again, we may have to go through some different types of acquisitions.
Yeah, so that's the future of like Eddie Malouf and even bad marketing. Like some of these software companies and stuff that are like synergistic, we're acquiring with bad marketing money. But like all these other like advisor roles I have and things like that, I'm acquiring with personal money. So maybe 5-10 years down the road, I'll have like 10, 15, 9-figure exits all together, and it'll be like, holy shit, like where'd all this come from? You know what I mean? But for now, I'm just investing it back in, trying to grow those companies because 10% of $150 million, $15 million.
Yeah.
First 10 of it's untaxed. I'll take that all day. You know what I mean?
When you look at where you've come from, like, did you ever imagine that this would be like?
Not at all. Not at all. And even then, I'm not. Now I'm like nowhere where I want to be. Right. But no chance. I thought, dude. I remember I was in college, literally 10 years ago. I was still in university, and like making $150K a year was like bonkers. And we do that every 2 days, I guess.
Obviously, I'm not discounting in any way the talent and skills that you've developed.
Yeah.
But it's possible for anyone if they put them to work.
Anyone. I always tell people like, here's the thing. I was actually, and a lot of it's just like how you perceive yourself.
Yes.
How you perceive yourself is really everything. And I was driving to my first day of college. It was like orientation day. My dad was driving me. It's about an hour and a half from our house. And I was like looking out the window, and I don't know what like epiphany or how did this even happen, but like I was like, you know what, like up to this point in my life, everyone's kind of known me. Like I went from elementary school to middle school to high school. It's kind of like the same people surrounding you. So like they have a perceived perception of you and who Edward is. Oh, Edward's the bald fat kid who's like a loser and can't pick up girls, whatever, right?
Yep.
But I'm like, this day forward, like everyone I meet doesn't know anything about me. And so I could be like the bald stud guy who gets all the chicks. You know what I mean? And I was like, I clicked in that moment. I was like, I could be whoever I want from this day forward, and no one would ever have any perception of like getting rejected by girls. I used to be fat, or you know what I mean? Like I'm not funny, whatever it is, right? I was like, all these like insecurities and stuff, I could just like get rid of them, and I could be like, what do I want to be? I'm like, I want to be really likable. I want people to, want to hang out with me. I want to be able to make good money. I want to be cool and be able to get chicks. Like I'm kind of going down the list. I'm like, cool, that's who I am. And like, I just made that conscious decision. And literally from that day onward, I was a different person. Like I would go just like sit next to a girl at like a cafeteria and just like get her number and not care. And like, whereas before, dude, I would be like intimidated to talk to a girl that like I knew, you know what I mean? Like just little shifts, like being able to like, just treat life differently. And I think that is why most people don't get there, is because like they don't think they can do it or be that person. It's not that they can't, it's just that they don't think they can. And if you do not think you can, then you will definitely not. Like it's what they say, like if someone thinks they're going to lose, they've already lost.
Yeah.
And that's how most people are playing.
Whether you think you can or you think you can't.
You're right.
You're right.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's amazing what the brain can do, isn't it?
It's insane, actually.
Now, once you have that perspective, you actually then have to actually live the life. You
For
have
sure.
to do the work. You have to be the person who can accomplish those things.
Of course, yeah.
I call it the law of prerequisites, right? You have to do the things before you get the things. Like a lot of people want to become wealthy, and they'll say, once I become wealthy, I'm going to do X, Y, and Z.
Yeah.
No, you have to do X, Y, and Z to become wealthy.
To become wealthy,
You want
exactly.
to be healthy. Once I become healthy, I'm going to do the X, Y, and Z. No, you have to do the X, Y, and Z to become healthy.
Exactly.
That law of prerequisites is quite transformative once you understand it, because then once you understand it, you just put it into practice.
Yeah.
Like, this has been awesome. I love the time that we spend together. I'm just kind of curious because I know that there are going to be a ton of people who want to make sure that they connect with you outside of this experience. What's the best way for them to do that?
If they just type in my first and last name on Instagram, it'll come up. YouTube, it'll come up. Different content everywhere. If you want to connect with me directly, you can just get on Instagram. If you want to learn from things that I'm doing or projects like the haunted house and stuff like that, I try to document as much as I can on YouTube so that I could just kind of pass that knowledge on and show people strategies that we're using and doing to grow these businesses, and hopefully they can do the same in theirs.
Laddie, I truly appreciate you coming out and sharing your story with us. It's been a lot of fun for me. Every time we talk, I learn more and more about everything that's going on in your life. This is cool.
I appreciate it, man. Thank you for having me. It was an honor, man. Thank you.
It's been my pleasure. And for you, I know you've had an amazing experience learning from this gentleman. You're not going to want to miss opportunities to get in touch with him. So definitely we'll put it in the show notes. You're going to want to reach out, say hello, be sure if you're not yet following him, like, why not? Come on. So until next time, be well. Edward Collins here, signing off for Entrepreneur Unleashed. Be well. Eddie, thank you so much.
Thanks, man.